Hello, today we're going to talk about Portage packs. So the design of the Portage pack has changed a ton since we are first making them out of canvas and leather. Today we make 4 different classes of Portage pack. We make what we call our Voyager series, our Outfitter series, our food packs, and our personal packs. Today we're going to take 2 of those series, our Voyager and our Outfitter, compare them side by side to see what's different, what's the same, and how they can make your adventures possible. So if we look at our packs, all of our packs are made out of a material called 1000 denier Cordura nylon. So that's a heavy duty fabric. It's actually probably overkill for the application. However, it's a great material for outfitters and camps that bring out their gear every single day of the summer, and it makes it possible for that pack to last possibly decades in that application. So that's a really important feature, and we use it across the board, no matter if you're looking at a lower class of pack, something that's a little more economical, has a few less features, like our Voyager series. It's still made out of 1000 denier, and it's still made right here in-house in the same machines. That's important because it means all of our packs across the board have the same quality and are made out of the same durable materials. And how that's an improvement over the canvas and leather packs we used to use, well, canvas and leather, specifically cotton canvas, is the ability to absorb water. And on a canoe trip, that's a big deal because a pack that absorbs water is actually going to get heavier over the course of the trip. And a pack that's getting heavier, that's just going to make it harder to carry, right? Well, a pack that's canvas and leather and natural materials also means you have to do a lot of work to maintain that pack over time. If it's not dried out at the end of the trip, the pack will mildew, it'll rot, and eventually your pack will decay away. With the leather, you have to keep treating it so it stays waterproof and so it doesn't crack and eventually fail. With nylon, nylon does not absorb water in the same way canvas and leather does, and because of that, the pack requires less attention in its maintenance, and it's also more durable over time. So again, all of our packs are made out of 1000 denier, which is important because a lot of Portage packs you find are made out of 400 or made out of as low as 210 denier fabric. Now to me, that fabric is pretty inadequate for a Portage pack that's not being used in its ideal scenario. What's an ideal scenario? Well, I would say a wilderness trip or a camper outfitter setting is way beyond what you should be using a 200 denier for. And that's because a pack is not being treated the way it should necessarily. It's not always being used by people that know exactly how to take care of it. And if that's the application for your pack, 1000 denier material is really, really going to stand up to that abuse in a way a lighter pack would not. And so comparing our 2 series, we have our Voyager series, as I mentioned, is kind of our first tier, introductory tier Portage pack. It has fewer features than something more complicated like an Outfitter series. And with that, it comes with a slightly more economical price. So if we look at our 2 packs, the Voyager series has 3 packs in its class. We call them the number 2, the number 3, and the number 4. If those names are familiar to you, it's because those names go way, way back in history. Traditionally, Portage packs were classed into these series, and the number 2 is the smallest, the number 3 is the next size up. It's kind of a mid-class pack, and the number 4 is the largest. Now, the number 2 is a great pack for using like food pack or as a small personal sized bag. The number 3 is a nice medium-sized pack, and it functions great as a personal pack for 1 or 2 people that need their sleeping gear and personal items. And the number 4 is a larger pack traditionally used as, say, an equipment pack. Now, our number 2 and a number 3 are built like a traditional Portage pack, which means they're designed as an envelope-style pack. An envelope-style pack is one that is sewn along the side seams. So there's one seam on each side of the pack. Now, a more modern Portage pack style is what we would call the box style of pack. And so if I looked at my number 4, and all members of the Outfitter class, it has a side gusset. The side gusset allows the pack to gain depth and get slightly wider so it holds more gear than just an envelope style, which as it gains width, as it gains depth, it loses width. So look at our number 4 series here. We see a pretty bare bones, simple pack. It does have load lifters. We believe load lifters are a really great addition to a pack because if you look at, say, this leather and canvas pack in front of me, what these old school packs do is even if you tighten down the straps all the way, which it's hard to do because on leather you have increments, which means you can only tighten it an inch at a time. You can't micro adjust it. But if you load this all the way up and you're trying to use this pack, what it's going to naturally want to do is pull back and away from your shoulders. That pulling back puts you at a disadvantage for carrying, but it also means that all the weight of this pack, however much gear you have along, is going to be carried along the front of your shoulders. That's challenging to do, and it's not very ergonomic. And in the past, this functioned fine because it's the best we had. But as we look at modern packs out of modern materials, it allows us to start using packs more efficiently and designing packs more efficiently so that they carry better. And with load lifters, what the load lifter is capable of doing is it pulls that top of the pack in towards your back, so it doesn't pull you back, and it gets closer to your center of gravity and your muscle mass, allowing you to carry this more efficiently. Even on our base level pack, we include that on the number 4 and on the number 3, so that it still functions well. It might be a simple pack, it doesn't have a lot of features, but it has enough to make it comfortable, like things like a sternum strap and padded shoulder straps. And it even has a hip belt sleeve. So we don't include the hip belt in this package off the get-go, but you can order one if you want, and a lot of old timers will argue about the hip belt. Is there validity to it? Does it actually help? From my perspective, it's a valuable tool because the point of shoulder straps, hip belt, sternum strap, is helping that pack get as close as it can to your back and spread out over the entirety of your muscle mass. So what a hip belt does really well is it transitions the weight of the pack, which in a traditional leather and canvas pack is just on your shoulders. It helps transition some of that weight to your hips, allowing you to use more of your muscle groups for carrying a heavy load. Again, a Voyager series pack, the shoulder straps are designed the same way as our Outfitter series. We'll talk more about shoulder strap design in another video. And it still has cargo handles, which from our packs, we design them in such a way that cargo handles, shoulder straps, adjustable straps are all part of the pack itself rather than just being sewn onto the outside. It's a redundancy thing. It allows it to be stronger over time. But that's the extent of the Voyager series. It's pretty straightforward. It's a straightforward basic pack. Now a pack like this number 4, would cost you $185. The Outfitter series behind me, like this Outfitter 85 up here, is in fact a $305 pack, so you're paying more for it. But how does this pack function in a way that your traditional Portage packs don't? How does it make your trip better? So we start examining some of those features. If we look at the back of the Outfitter 85, you will notice, first off, a padded back. So padded backs and Portage packs have been around for a while. However, what we do different is we pad it where you need it, not where you don't. What that means is we sew in chunks of foam to be exactly where you need that padding. It's along your shoulder blades and down. To me, having an entire foam back to a pack is actually pretty wasteful because you don't need padding everywhere. You need it where you're going to carry it. And padding by itself is just essentially a feature to allow you to pack a pack more easily. So a Voyager series, you can carry an old school Voyager series or even this canvas leather pack. You can carry it comfortably if you know how to pack. You're wise about where you put items within the bag. So what that means is sharp objects like axes and saws, cook kits, stoves, extra pair of shoes, things which don't feel good jabbing into your back on a Portage, you put those on the front of the pack. Soft things like sleeping bags and sleeping pads you put near your back. It allows you to have that padding. But if you don't have that option, if you have lots of items that aren't going to be comfortable to pack, or if you don't quite have the know-all to pack it really, really well, it even happens to the best of us when we need to move quickly, right? We throw stuff in the pack and then it's not as comfortable as we'd like. That's where the form and padding of a padded back really come into play. It makes this pack function better for the uses that we need it for. We'll also notice that this one has a different style hip belt. So even on a traditional Voyager series like this one, you see the hip belt is just a sleeve built onto the pack. And that functions fine, but what we find is the packs are not super flexible to the different people's different builds. And so if you have a short torso or a long torso, you might put on a pack like this and it's only so adjustable, which means the hip belt, when you put it on, if you have a short torso, you might find that the hip belt's way down by your thighs. Or if you have a long torso, it might be up around your belly, and that does not help you transition the weight of a Portage pack to your hips the way it should. And so our Outfitter series uses a pretty innovative system. We have actually an adjustable hip belt that's able to move up and down to fit the torso of the person trying to carry it. We also see a hip belt which has side adjusters. So side adjusters, similar to the load lifters at the top, allow you to take the weight of the pack and conform it more to your body shape. The closer this pack can hug to your body and to your muscles, the more that you're going to be able to effectively carry that. Because a pack that's pulling back away from you is going to make you naturally want to lean back and not be able to carry it quite as well as you would if the pack is conforming to you. And so the feature is, and I'll show you this closer on a close-up, allows you to pull the sides of the pack in towards the hip belt, which is helping transition that weight towards your hips. If we look at the sides of this pack, where we have the gusset, this is one of my favorite features of a modern Portage pack because it allows this pack to be flexible. So traditionally, if you had canvas packs or even a Voyager series, you'd have your number 4, your number 3, whatever. If you went out on a solo trip, you'd either have lots of leftover space in the pack, or you'd be bringing more gear than you wanted to fill the pack. And with a modern gusseted pack like this one, it allows you to adjust the pack to your trip. So if I am going out on a solo trip, I don't need 85 liters of gear. That's a lot of equipment. I can take these side gusset adjusters, pull the strap, and it actually collapses the gusset down to be a smaller pack. Beyond that, once I have this pack filled up with gear, if I actually didn't do that great of a job packing it, and I have all this dead space in the corner, I might have a large item like maybe a sleeping pad, like a rolled up sleeping pad, bulging out one side but not the other, I can actually use these gussets to conform the pack to the gear so it's taking up the minimum amount of space and I don't have an annoying amount of leftover pack flapping around in between. As we open up the Outfitter series, what we'll see is this mesh pack, mesh pocket here on the front. So this is an amount of utility that an old school just canvas pack doesn't have. If we look at our Voyager series, it's designed that the same way as an old school pack. There is actually a pocket in the Voyager series. It's tucked inside the front of the body. It does give some utility, but there's nothing on the outside of the pack. It's made to be pretty simple, pretty straight to the point. An Outfitter series, like our Outfitter 85 here, has this mesh pocket on the front. The mesh pocket on the front allows you quick access to things like sunscreen, things like maps, bug spray, things you want to get to quickly without having to open up the entire pack. And the importance of this being a mesh pocket means this pocket doesn't catch water. And so if we had a pocket made out of quarter and nylon, for instance, it might hold water and not drain out of that pocket throughout the course of the day. The mesh pocket allows it to air and drain out, while also being quick to access at the front of the pack. And then we look at the top and inside of this pack, we have a sleeve at the top with a drawstring, and that allows you to really close off the top of this pack. So a traditional Portage pack has, at most, it has a top flap, which our Voyager series does. The top flap allows you to compress down whatever amount you've packed in and kind of close it off. But the sleeve on the Outfitter series, in fact, lets you do that even more effectively. So the sleeve with the drawstring allows you to close up that pack, close off the contents in such a way that they're not exposed to the outside quite as much as they would be on an open top, but also allows you to kind of contain the items so they don't spread everywhere. All of our packs are designed with the notion of a pack which is meant to dry out over the course of the day. So canoeing is wet. Obviously, you're paddling through a lake, but you're going to end up, if you're wet footing, or even if you're dry footing and accidentally step in a puddle or a swamp throughout the Portage, you're going to be trapping water and mud into that canoe. So a pack that is truly waterproof, like a white water bag, if water gets into that, which it always seems to at some point throughout the day, if water finds its way into that pack, you will not get it dry by the end of the trip. You will not be able to set it out on a rock and get it to truly dry out. Our packs are made to be worked in a layering system, like a traditional pack would, where you use a pack lighter inside of the pack, and then something like a waterproof bag inside of that. Those layers allow you the utility to dry this out throughout the day. And then along that same mindset, something like the sleeve here in the top gives you just a little bit more waterproofness because the Cordura nylon is a relatively waterproof fabric. You may see some seepage in through seams and things like that, or even from the top because it's not a sealing top. But the sleeve allows you some of that utility to close off the contents even more effectively to the outside. So we look at this pack, right? We look at these features, and the features are there to allow this pack more utility. Where something like this is a pretty straightforward pack, there's one way you use it. It might be empty, it might be very full, but the way you use it is pretty much the same from one use to the next. It has shoulder straps, it has little lifters, it has an open compartment. A pack like this has more utility that allows you to more specifically tailor your pack to your use, to your person, so that the pack functions better for your portage, for your adventure, and hopefully allows you to take an activity like portaging, which can be really challenging, depending on how you pack, how much weight's in the gear, how tough the trail is. Takes a pack, an activity that's difficult, and makes it a little more doable, a little more enjoyable. And that's the idea with so many of our features, is how do we take gear, how do we take portaging, which is a fairly straightforward activity, and make it easier to use, more innovative, and continue to fulfill your adventures in a new and different way. That's all. Next time.